Welcome to Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie.
Carrie, I have some staff that are they're great with the kids, but they're just not, they don't seem to be my raving fans. Like they're good staff, they show up, but I want to take them to the next level. How do I do that?
You talk to them a lot. You be present in their world, because presumably you got to a leadership position because you're good at this early childhood or after school gig. Like, you know how to connect with kids, you know how to run a classroom, or maybe you came in from the, business side and you know how to communicate with parents and other adult humans. So usually people get to the director position or the leadership position either from coming up through the classroom, or they came through business and they're like, kids are really cool. So you probably got at least one of those skill sets, and it's modeling, it's having conversations, it's coaching. Okay, we've solved it. This is how you retain your staff and move staff up this skill level. We're done. This is a really short podcast, Kate.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to help everybody. So we know that they're going to have some conversations. Like, most of us who are listening probably can very easily name their ace, their front line, their first string. These are the folks that we've got. These are our majors, right? So I'm going to go with sports today, Carrie. So I've got the major leagues, and I can tell you exactly who those are. And then I've got those I'd really rather, like, they need to just stay in the locker room.
Or your bench warmers?
I don't even want them on my bench. I want them out of my field. But I keep them because they're a warm body. Like, and again, I know we've got people listening going, I got that one. So a lot of us can quickly identify our major league players, as well as they really ought to be not on the roster people. But what do I do with the folks who, again, they're good, but they just aren't doing everything for me? How do I help them? What do I need to say to them? I'm stuck.
Well, to me, it comes back to the mentoring and the coaching.
But what does that mean? I don't know what that means. I mean, help me. Like, what kind of conversations do I have with them?
First, we catch them being good. So that staff person who is the bench warmer, okay, so they're not down in the minor leagues, like those people that you're like, probably I should get rid of them, but they're in the minor leagues, right? They're showing up on time mostly. They're mostly filling out forms correctly. They're mostly keeping the kids safe, right? So those are the people that eventually probably are going to either step up or step out. But these are the people we're talking about here who they are competent. They're not good. Does that make sense? Right. And so when you catch them doing a great story time, or helping a child regulate their emotions, or just calming a child who has lost their mind down. So the first step is catching them when they're doing A level or, varsity level work, right? The major league, whatever version we're using so many different versions here. But when they're doing that level of work for the 5 minutes a day, that they are doing the level of work that is what you aspire to have all your staff do, catch them and tell them, because then they know, oh, this is what it looks like. I didn't get it. I thought that, in order to be a great toddler teacher, I needed to be having a circle time where I sat down and those 12 toddlers just paid rapt attention to me. And that's when we did curriculum. But you say that I did curriculum when I sang the Itsy Bitsy Spider as we were moving from the classroom to the playground. Oh, cool. And that gives them something to think about, that they were expecting what they might have seen in a movie or with a classroom for kindergartners. And that's what they're expecting to be able to do in the toddler classroom. I know you were working with somebody at one of our centers, one of the centers we worked with in the toddler classroom about that kind of concept, right?
Yeah. You know, so would this be where, like, if I've got a teacher who, again, she's good, but she's not great. How can I use goal setting or having those staffing review conversations? How can I use that somehow to help her?
Yes, but she's not going to listen if you haven't been catching her being good first. So you've got to start there, because then they're willing to listen to you, because when they listen to you, you say nice things about them. So because a lot of people have that anxiety, oh, the boss is coming, it's going to be something bad. So you've got to get them in the habit of, a lot of times when the boss comes to talk to you, it's good things. It's them telling me that I'm doing a great job. And then you can have the conversation about what do they want to do, who do they aspire to be, etc. And again, you can do that whole catching them being good using your words, your mouth, or you can write them a note or a post-it note. And it's kind of cool if you go grab your backpack at the end of the day and there are 3 post-it notes on your backpack about, I saw you do this really cool thing, because you're tired at the end of the day. And this gives you a pick-me-up and a reason to come back and be excited to come back tomorrow. Or
Absolutely. I love that.
This is one of my favorite. Leaving them a voicemail on their phone. So when they pick up their phone in the office and they're like, oh, I've got 3 missed calls. One of them is from my boss. And you have left them a message saying, hey, I'm just in the hallway. I just stepped out of your classroom. I saw this, blah, blah, blah.
I love that, Carrie, because one of the things that we always want our directors to do is to know the learning styles of their staff. And if you've got a staff person who definitely relates to auditory, or their love language is words of affirmation, I mean, how awesome would it be to save the recording of your boss telling you did a really good job? I mean, I have emails like that from clients. I have thank you cards from teenagers I've worked with over the years. I mean, I keep those things. I am the words of affirmation person. And
well, so
I
good
keep
for
them,
the deeds
because
of service.
there can be days where I'm just having a day.
Those things are also good for the deeds of service folks. That also works for them.
Yep.
So go back to the book, From Overwhelmed to I Got This. If you don't know about the love languages and the where people hold tension and all of that, we got a whole chapter all about that. But once we've got that and they're open to hearing stuff, then we ask them, who do you want to grow up to be, basically? Do you want to grow up to be a teacher who has the sort of vibe of Fred Rogers? Or are you more a Miss Piggy?
Or Miss Frizzle?
Or Miss Frizzle? Yes. Do you want to be a Miss Frizzle? Do you want to be Miss
I want
Rachel?
her hair.
Huh?
I want her hair.
You don't have the complexion for the red hair. I'm sorry.
I have freckles. I have lots of freckles. I have freckles.
So do I. That doesn't mean anything. But so what kind of educational leader do they want to be? Do they want to be Dr. Montessori? Do they who do they want to grow up to be? And
I want to be
that's the basis of the goal setting.
I want to be Big Bird.
You want to be Big Bird. Okay, great. So you've got imaginary
Snuffleupagus.
Yep. So we don't want our staff to be imaginary friends. We want them to come to work every day. And then we use that as the basis for talking about the goal setting. And then you can reference it when you're talking to them and guiding because they didn't do something as well as you want. So you'd be like, so when you were out on the playground today, I wasn't feeling Mr. Rogers' energy from you because I heard a lot of no and don't and stop and are you kidding me? And that doesn't seem like very much a Mr. Rogers kind of a thing. And that's who you said you wanted to be. So I want you to think when you go on the playground today or this afternoon, what would Mr. Rogers say when presented with some of these situations?
Well, Mr. Rogers is going to change his shoes.
Absolutely. Mr. Rogers is.
Going to put on those kids. So, yeah. So as a director, I'm listening to this podcast and I'm going, okay, so I have to be nice to people. Is that what you're telling me? And that's going to make it all better?
It's not going to make it all better, but it's going to make it somewhat better. You're going to attract more of what you want if you focus on what you want. That whole phrase, you attract more, what is it? More something with honey than more bees with honey than with vinegar, right?
I was actually thinking, I'm like, what is she talking about? The honeys and the bee thing?
Yeah. So you attract more bees with honey than with vinegar. So if you're constantly focusing on what people are doing wrong, you're not going to get any of that positive worker bee energy.
So
because
they don't want you want to be sweet, not sour.
Yes. And if you're constantly talking about, oh, I can't believe these people, they don't even bother to show up. And I've just spent 3 hours redoing the schedule. And then Janice just doesn't come back from lunch break. And, you know, if you're constantly grumping about what your staff is doing wrong, they're going to do more wrong. Just like if you were constantly harping on that one kid with behavior problems in a classroom, more kids are going to do that negative behavior because that's how they can get your attention. Focus on what you want. Focus on what you want. Or, as I say, ask for what you want. That is like my mantra. Ask for what you want. If you want more Fred Rogers energy, ask for Fred Rogers energy. If you want animal energy from the Muppets, then ask for animal energy. Ask for what you want, praise them when they're giving it to you, and then when they're not, bring it up to them and go, that didn't seem very much like Fozzie Bear energy to me. Or whatever it is.
Boy, we are all over the Muppets today. We have picked, I think, a Muppet from every, do we need a Fraggle Rock Muppet now? So
probably. Or a Labyrinth Muppet.
Oh, okay.
Yoda?
Apparently we are all in Muppet minds today, but we also want to make sure that as you are listening, you're finding those things that you can connect with. So we hope that you get that you need to be more positive with your staff, and that before you start any plan, you need to prime that pump with some positive energy. So if the goal is to talk to them about where do they see themselves and why they need to start taking more training, even before we do that, we need to make sure that we know that they're doing some things right and we need to tell them. Is that kind of the gist of the
yes, that's
I know you tried to do this in 2 seconds, but I tried to make it longer.
And then the other part of this is how you get staff that become your raving fans, that want to stay with you for years or decades because they know that you really see them, and you don't presume that just because when they first started they wanted to be Fred Rogers, that 3 years later they're not ready to be Miss Frizzle, right? So you have to keep having those conversations. And that gets you excellent staff retention or low turnover, whichever way you want. But I'm going to focus on what we like, which is this high staff retention. That's what I want, is high staff retention. I want staff who are going to stay with you for years and decades.
And you know what? I don't care what any director tells me. It is not all about the money.
No. And if you've got a staff person who says, well, I'm going to leave because, Buc-ee's is going to pay me $40 an hour to sit on my bahookie, then you say, okay, I guess I will see you at Buc-ee's, and let that person go. Because if the only thing that is motivating somebody is money, then this is not the right industry for them. Or if they're in a situation in their personal life where the money has to be the driver because they're in a crisis mode and they can't pay their rent and they've cut everything out of their budget they possibly can, but they now have 72 children of their own, then it's okay for them to go work at Buc-ee's because they need that money so that they can pay for their 72 children. So we've got to give people some grace for if they're in a place in their life where they need to be earning $40 an hour to sit on their bahookie. And that's okay. That's nothing against you. That's where they are in their life. And we need to get them out of your program anyway. So we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the ones who are your bench warmers right now. And we want to get them to be those star players that end up in puzzles. I had a puzzle recently that had Derek Jeter, and I was like, I don't know who that guy is. Apparently he's important, and his number is 2. But I didn't know that. But hopefully we do know who the Miss Rachels are at your program. We know who the Fred Rogerses are. We know who the Miss Frizzles are, and you're growing more of them. Anything else you want to say before we wave goodbye to these folks and tell them we'll talk to them next week?
I think that's it. I really do feel like I am now on the, okay, so next week, children. So I have felt myself transported to some sort of children's show, which probably won't last very long, but really we hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, share it with another director. If you need to, go back and listen to it again, because you know what? We are notorious for hiding things in there, and you go, why did I never think of that? And I'm going to go with those Post-it notes on the backpack, or that leaving that voicemail for your teacher, because she just captured exactly what you've always wanted them to do. Now, don't say it that way. Don't say, oh, I've always wanted you to do this. So just say, hey, I saw you doing this with this child, and it was awesome to watch, and I wanted to let you know that it warmed my heart. And with that, Carrie, how can they reach us?
You can email us at Carrie@TexasDirector or Kate@TexasDirector.org or info.childcareconversations@gmail.com. We should be using that one more often. info.childcareconversations@gmail.com. And give us your ideas of what are things that are being problems at your center right now. And we will spend 20 minutes trying to solve your problems. Okay.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Oh, give me, I want those. Okay. All right. Bye.
Talk to you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie. Want to learn more? Check out our website at texasdirector.org. And if you've learned anything today, leave us a comment below and share the show.